Ah, there you are. Once again, I would like to welcome you to Pondering the Orb. I'm your host, the wandering fantasy author J. Requard, ready again for the quest. So let's dive into some great books, listen to some rousing music, and prepare for high adventure. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Let's set off. After two wonderful episodes exploring the short fiction New Edge Sword Sorcery magazine, I went on a short fiction binge and decided to read some more. And how can you go wrong with Clark Ashton Smith? As one of the three paragons of weird tales along with H.P. Lovecraft and Robert E. Howard, Smith's voice resounds throughout the ages as one of the most influential in sword and sorcery and fantasy. A weaver of tales both beautiful and immeasurable in their grandeur, I'm pleased to read from one of his classics. This is The Dark Eidolon by Clark Ashton Smith, first published in Weird Tales in 1935. The Dark Eidolon by Clark Ashton Smith. Thassadon, lord of seven hells, wherein the single serpent dwells, with volumes drawn from pit to pit, through fire and darkness infinite. Thassadon, son of nether skies, thine ancient evil never dies, for aye thy sombre fulgurs flame on sunken worlds that have no name. Man's heart enthrones thee, still supreme, though the false sorcerers blaspheme. The Song of Zethra. On Zothic, the last continent of earth, the sun no longer shone with the whiteness of its prime, but was dim and tarnished as if with a vapor of blood. New stars without number had declared themselves in the heavens, and the shadows of the infinite had fallen closer. And out of the shadows, the older gods had returned to man, the gods forgotten since Hyperborea, since Mu and Poseidonus, bearing other names but the same attributes. And the elder demons had also returned, battening on the fumes of evil sacrifice, and fostering again the primordial sorceries. Many were the necromancers and magicians of Zothic, and the infamy and marvel of their doings were legend everywhere in the latter days. But among them there was none more greater than Nemira, who imposed his black yoke on the cities of Xylac, and later, in a proud delirium, deemed himself the veritable peer of Thassadon, lord of evil. Nemira had built his abode in Umaus, the chief town of Xylac, to which he had come from the desert realm of Tassoon, with the dark renown of his thaumaturgies like a cloud of desert storm behind him. And no man knew that in coming to Umaus he returned to the city of his birth, for all deemed him a native of Tassoon. Indeed, none could have ever dreamt that the great sorcerer was once the beggar boy, Narthos, an orphan of questionable parentage, who had begged his daily bread in the streets and bazaars of Umaus. Wretchedly he had lived, alone and despised, and a hatred of the cruel, opulent city grew in his heart like a smothered flame that feeds in secret, biding the time when it shall become a conflagration consuming all things. Bitterer always, through his boyhood and early youth, was the spleen and rancor of Narthos towards men. And one day the Prince Atula, a boy but a little older than he, riding a restive palfrey, came upon him in the square before the imperial palace, and Narthos implored an alms. But Satula, scorning his plea, rode arrogantly forward, spurring the palfrey, and Narthos was ridden down and trampled under its hooves. And afterward, nigh to death from the trampling, he lay senseless for many hours, while the people passed by him unheeding. And at last, regaining his senses, he dragged himself to his hovel, but he limped a little thereafter all his days, and the mark of one hoof remained like a brand on his body, fading never. Later, he left Umaus and was forgotten quickly by its people. Going southward into Tassoon, he lost his way in the great desert, and was near to perishing, and finally he came to a small oasis, where dwelt the wizard Ufalak, a hermit who preferred the company of honest jackals and hyenas to that of men. And Ufalak, seeing the great craft and evil in the starveling boy, gave succor to Narthos and sheltered him. He dwelt for years with Ufalak, becoming the wizard's pupil and heir to his demon-wrested lore. Strange things he learned of that hermitage, being fed on fruits and grain that had sprung not from the watered earth, and wine that was not the juice of Terran grapes. And like Ophalic, he became a master of devildom and drove his own bond with the archfiend Thysadon. When Ophalic died, the boy Nothros took the name Namira, and went forth as a mighty sorcerer among the wandering peoples and the deeply buried mummies of Tissoon. But never could he forget the miseries of his boyhood in Umaus, and the wrong he had endured from Zetula, and year by year he spun over in his thoughts the black web of revenge. And his fame grew darker and vaster, and men feared him in remote lands beyond Tissoon. With bated whispers they spoke of his deeds in the city of Euros and Zabaser, the abode of the ghoulish deity Morgdigian. And long before the coming of Namira himself, the people of Umaus knew him as a fabled scourge that was direr than Semam or pestilence. Now, in the years that followed the going forth of the boy Narthos from Umaus, Pitham, the father of Prince Zetula, was slain by the sting of a small adder that had crept into his bed for warmth on an autumn night. Some said that the adder had been purveyed by Zetula, but this was a thing no man could verily affirm. After the death of Pitham, Zetula, being his only son, was Emperor Xylac, and ruled evilly from his throne in Umaus. Indolent he was, and tyrannic, and full of strange luxuries and cruelties. But the people, who were also evil, acclaimed him in his turpitude. So he prospered, and the lords of hell and heaven smote him not. And the red suns and ashen moons went westward over Xylac, falling into that seldom void sea, which, if the mariners' tales were true, poured evermore like a swift'ning river past the infamous Isle of Nat, and fell in a world-wide cataract upon nether space from the far, sheer edge of earth. Grosser still he grew, and his sins were as overswollen fruits that ripen above a deep abyss. But the winds of time blew softly, and the fruits fell not. And Zetula laughed amid his fools and his eunuchs and his lemons, and the tale of his luxuries was borne afar, and was told by dim outland peoples, as a twin marvel with the brutal necromancies of Namira. It came to pass, in the year of the hyena in the month of the star Canicule, that a great feast was given by Zetula to the inhabitants of Umaus. Meats that had been cooked in exotic spices from Sotar, an isle to the east, were spread everywhere, and the ardent wines of Yaros and Xylac, filled as with subterranean fires, were poured inexhaustibly from huge urns for all. The wines woke a furious mirth and a royal madness, and afterward they brought a slumber no less profound than the letha of the tomb. And one by one, as they drank, the revelers fell down in the streets, the houses and gardens, as if a plague had struck them, and Zetula slept in his banquet hall of gold and ebony, with his odalisks and chambermaids all about him. So, in all of Umaus, there was no man or woman wakeful at the hour when Sirius began to fall toward the west. Thus it was that none saw or heard the coming of Namira. I'm happy to announce that I have a new book, and it is the finale of Spy Counter Killer. We take one last sip before action and mayhem commence, and a spot before dead. Hoslin burns. Thousands lie dead, but our team remains alive, ready to take vengeance against a ferocious dragon cult. Now racing against the clock before the next attack, Mina Prakanati, Raga Steelbeard, and the Assassin Keeper must stake everything in a high-octane adventure to bring home this hopeful conclusion to my fantasy spy thriller. Please enjoy, and let's read. A Spot Before Dead. Spy Counter Killer 3 by J. Requard. Chapter 1. Bits of Leaf. She sat at the end of the bed in the darkened chamber, staring into the starry night outside the window. Cut in the cold silver glow, the blanket around her shoulders provided little comfort as she bored past the navy luster and the bright points, seeking the blackness beyond. Despite her rage, Mina Prakanati was thankful for the eider down. If she had squeezed any harder without it, she would have drawn blood from her palms. Another damned cult, she whispered. Deer, a hidden and dark god with a fixation on white dragons, had taken her former lover Lai Zhou, the slain emperor of the Jade Empire of Shen. His toady lord had taken her tea shop. Her only escape, the only break between her life as an imperial spy master, a bloody killer, and something simpler. Stolen in a single night. She would reap from him, god or not, she swore in silence. Too restless to sit on the down mattress, Mina launched to her feet, pacing the red, blue, pink, and white braided carpets before a fireplace too late in its embers to be saved. Anger wound a cord around her heart and throat. It sent her to the great window overlooking the gardens of Valen Golden Tongue's estate, or at least the one he claimed for the organization providing her the safety to rest her head. A table littered with her belongings, rescued from the ruins of Prakanati Tea and Spice Company, stood before it. Her fighting knife, 12 inches long and curving toward a sharp point, had been cleaned before being rehoused in its dark leather home, an integrated sheath that strapped across her chest when worn with all manner of garments, but especially the ribbed and padded doublet it lay beside. The ruffled brown and cream striped sleeves had been washed multiple times by Valen servants, but no matter how much soap or muster, a haunt of smoke remained in the fabric and boned bodice, as well as a slight singe on the hem. The tea shop's fire had scorched sections of her mechanical mini bow, which when folded out and locked provided her main armament. She needed many arrows for what she had planned. Mina undressed from her sleeping gown, finding fresh underclothes in a chest of drawers before she put on some soft trousers. Wearing a light shift, she jacketed on her doublet, feeling the weight of the small tricks and evils hidden in the recessed pockets along the sleeves. Yanking on her boots and strapping on the knife, she exited the bedroom with her folded bow in hand. Alone in the darkened hallway of Valen's manor on the high and affluent Blood Ridge Mountains, she prowled the corridors, retracing her steps from that afternoon back to the main foyer and entrance. A lone man with a halberd guarded it. As she stepped within range of his oil lamp's illumination, he did not seize at Mina's appearance. "Morning, Lady Prakanati," said the guard. "Out for a jaunt?" A ride," she said. "Would you point me in the direction of the stables?" "Certainly," said the halberd man, tall with tawny skin and golden eyes, from out west where the nomadic Mezca confederacies still roamed the grass plains in defiance of the sorcerer kings to the north. An immigrant like herself, the hard lines around his eyes and mouth warned of a man who knew how to handle the long weapon he held. "But do you wish for me to call you a carriage? I can ride myself, thank you." She looked further down the darkened corridor to her right. "Is there an armory? I need some arrows." "I can take you to find some arrows," said the guard. "For a small fee, I could also provide myself as a guard, if you were worried about arrows," she said. "Arrows and a horse will be fine, thank you." The guard bowed and motioned for her to follow him down the next corridor. Past the kitchen, she found a small armory attended by another servant, matched in the same black shirt and red trousers as the halberd man. She cheerily provided Mina a quiver filled with 16 broadhead arrows. "This way to the stable," said the guard, accompanying her every step down another passage leading out the eastern side of the manor, which she discerned as dawn cracked the gray horizon. A short walk across a quartering field where infantrymen drilled with wooden swords under the shouted orders of their commander, she entered the large barn where the horses slept or ate in 24 pens. A great bay held a black taxi carriage, an exact match for the ones employed by the imperial city of Hoslan in the sloping hills south of their location. Mina was immediately provided a fine quarter horse of a dark gray variety. Already saddled, she slung the quiver on the saddle horn before hesitation caused her to look at the guard and the stable hand. You two do know I'm riding away, correct?" The guard offered her a friendly smile. "You're a guest, ma'am, not a prisoner. Valen said you were allowed to come and go as you please." "Right. Taking up the reins, she secured her folded bow across her lap. She pressed her legs against the horse's flanks. The young gelding trotted forward. None followed as she rode off, the world before her revealed slowly by the creeping rays of a new day. Without looking back, Mina found the road at the end of the long drive, through fields where barley and wheat grew in cultivated rows. The iron gate of the mortared perimeter wall, manned by 4 sentries with long pikes, lay open. They did not move to stop her as she drove her mount into a faster sprint, racing past them. Out on the road, the last of Hostland's city lights glimmered, soon to be washed away by the sunlight, setting the Eskin Ocean beyond it ablaze. The light of dawn focused her. Vissel. The rich banker and cult leader who had organized the ruin of her life kept his manor the next valley over to the south-southwest, determined to start the next leg on her path of vengeance. She started westward, letting her horse go at his own pace to save his legs. It was mid-morning before she found Vissel's manor rested on twin hills, the wings of a grand house connected by a beautiful stone bridge with a steep blue roof. 3 guards armed with spears, swords, bucklers, and daggers, and armored in padded doublets patrolled its length. Circling the manor from behind a ridge on its north side, Mina discovered Vissel's main carriage road. She followed it to the rear of the house, drawing her quarter horse off the path when the gates came within view. Hiding behind the trees, she let the gentle beast up a steep embankment to garner a better angle of the entire carriage port and a garden set up with hedges around a stone patio. A sentry in the center leaned on his spear. Mina considered tying her horse on the other side of the hillock before attempting a bow shot when a hiss from behind made her turn. Valen pressed his finger to his lips, his other hand up to defend himself. Startled both by the gelding tugging against her and the bard's sudden appearance, Mina calmed her mount. He signaled for her to follow him back down the hill. Incensed at herself for letting him sneak up on her, she cursed her foolishness, and even more so when she saw at the foot of the grassy rise a full contingent of Valen's grinders, his personal army of sellswords. Clad in cloaks embellished with leaves and long grasses to blend with the hillside, the hard eyes of every man and woman fixed on her. The bard signaled to withdraw, and bringing her, his contingent, and her horse through a glade, the unit settled on a secluded ridge overlooking the carriage gates. "Reset your post," Valen whispered to his troop. "Send Horser as your runner to report to me in 6 hours. I'll take Lady Procranati back to Station House myself." The grinders answered with a simple touch of their fists to their hearts before they broke, circling the foot of the hill towards Vissel's lodge. In a few seconds they vanished into the whisper of the breeze and the leaves. Valen glowered at her from beside the horse she had taken from his stables, his red brows pinched. "You know better," he said. "You are a professional, and you know better." Not one to be dressed down, Mina swallowed her bitterness. "What do you think you were going to do?" he asked. "Storm the lodge and slay Vissel, with your few arrows and your knife? Aye, you know better. He took everything." She did not retreat from his hard look. "Everything." He stepped back and heaved a great sigh. "I know. But you're not the first, Mina, nor the only one. And I can't afford for you to get yourself killed when you're needed. Some things are bigger than us, and whatever Vissel is doing is one of them." "All right, Mina. I agreed with you, damn it," she said, annoyed by his persistence. She put her hand out for the gelding's reins. "Let's just get to it." "2023 has been a banner year for great chill synth albums making their presence on the synth scene, and we bring more dreamy sorcery all the way from San Diego to continue the spell. Gabarian has brought a wonderful, diverse album out this year called Outer Nature. From beginning to end, this eclectic blend of sun-dappled beats and sparkling keys hits right from the start and doesn't let up on this wonderful journey of an album. Taken from 2023's Outer Nature, this track is entitled Oracle by Gabarian. Formed in Vienna, Vermocracy is a band with 2 albums under their belts, but they sound like veterans deep into the recording contracts. But they're just getting started. Their songs exhibit a passion and precision old-school melodic death metal fans will love, harkening back to the best of Gothenburg in the 90s while keeping a raw edge that's seeking to break forward. This is dark melodic death metal with an epic presence. Taken from their 2022 album Age of Dysmorphia, this is Vermocracy and their song, World of Wounds. Thank you again for joining me for Pondering the Orb. Our next episode will be a Yuletide special, so remember to bring your swords and mead. We'll ring in the solstice in style. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Safe journeys, my friends.